Okay, cool. So I think we can get started. So welcome everyone to the University of Waterloo panel. I'm gonna be the host for today, so I'll start by introducing myself. I am here, the founder of Curious, but I'm the host today because I'm also a student at Waterloo, so I'm super excited to be hosting this panel. Um, I'm a first-year software engineering student, um, and I'm currently off campus, but all of my classes are in person. So today I'll be mostly moderating, but I'll also chip in if there's anything I want to add on. So we're gonna first get started with introductions for you guys. So we'll start with Maryam on my top. Well, for me at least. So just let us know your name, your year, your program, and maybe let us know something fun about you, a fun fact or a hobby that you've been pursuing.
Yeah, for sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Maryam. I'm a second year computer science program at the University of Waterloo. I go by the pronouns she, her. And I guess a fun fact about myself is that I did gymnastics for 9 years. I miss it a lot, but hopefully now that gyms are opening up, I can go back and practice for fun. Yeah.
Meet you, Maryam. Next up, we have Cindy.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Cindy, currently second year computer science and business double degree at Waterloo and Laurier. And I guess a fun fact about myself is I've recently developed a baking hobby, so I'm about to go bake an apple pie this afternoon.
Fun. Next up, Ali.
Hi everyone, my name's Ali and I'm a second year software engineering student at the University of Waterloo. I go by the pronouns he, him. And I guess a fun fact about me is in my spare time, I like taking a lot of videos, like a cinematography nerd. So yeah.
Yeah, your background. I mean, you can see I have some lights here.
Yeah.
But yeah, damn, are you using that's a professional camera, right? That you're using as a webcam?
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. And finally, I'm sorry if I butcher your name. Let me know how we pronounce it. Aung.
Yeah, Aung. Yeah. Hi, my name is Aung. I am a first year computer engineering student at Waterloo. Fun fact, I used to play a lot of Ultimate Frisbee, but I can't really anymore because of COVID, but I'm trying to get back into it.
Awesome. So as all of you can tell, a lot of us are from different programs. So we have computer science, computer engineering, software engineering, and CSBBA. So the way this is going to work is I'm going to present some general topics, but if you guys have questions, when I say you guys, I mean the participants in this call, if you guys have questions, feel free to leave it. There's a Q&A section. So there's on your right, you guys can see chat, participants, and Q&A. So whenever you guys have questions, feel free to chip in. And as a moderator, I'll choose those questions that are relevant and we can talk about it. But we'll get started first. Since this is a sort of tech event, I want to first hear about you guys, what your journey has been like in the tech industry. Like, when did you guys get interested in this field? Was it something you already knew since you were 6, or was this like something pretty last minute that you guys decided when choosing your university programs? So how about we can start with Ali? Do you want to go first?
So how I guess the summer I started programming at around like in middle school. It started out as nothing serious. It was I used to play Minecraft a lot and I wanted to make like mods for it. So I got tired of downloading mods that didn't work. I'm like, okay, this can't be that hard, like 12-year-old me. So then I started programming that way. And then eventually it became like a really addicting hobby where like I'd much rather make something for the game than play the game. So it sort of spiraled that way, and from that point on I took CS in high school. I did first robotics, some of you may be familiar, so got some robotics programming done, and then now I'm in SE, so going on co-op terms and working at different internships. I've only done one so far, so because I'm in my second year. So last term I worked at TD Innovation Lab, which is like a branch of TD where they like they work on the new features before they actually go into production. So that was pretty cool.
Awesome. That sounds great. How about let's hear from, say, Maryam. So Maryam, you're in computer science. what was your journey like in the tech industry?
Yeah, for sure. So my tech journey kind of started, I guess, later than Ali's. I have a dad who's a software engineer, so kind of he kind of helped me getting into my foot into the door in this tech world. But I took my first CS course in grade 10 and we were learning Python. And at the end of the course, we actually built a game. And I was like, whoa, this is so cool. From start to finish, I can like create a game. And I also really enjoyed the process of like designing and also like planning it out and working in a team. So that's how I really got into CS. And then since then, I like participated in hackathons and found my interest. And now I'm still not sure if I like front end more or back end. I'm still learning and seeing what I enjoy through my co-ops. I'm also on my first co-op term right now at RBC, so another bank. I'm working on the front end like website digital team Omni. We are updating the banking portal from like a old design to new design, so that's what I've been working on. But yeah.
What you, Cindy?
So I guess my journey is kind of similar. So I took my first computer science course in grade 9, actually. So I was in the IB program. So we take like courses before normal people can actually take it. So yeah, so I took my first computer science course in grade 9 and we learned Java. And then I took my second one in grade 10. And at that time, I still didn't really feel like going into tech. I was really interested in like biology and medicine. So I always wanted to be a doctor. And I think in my grade 12 year, I went to a computer science conference, which really, I guess, sparked my interest and made me realize that, you know, going into CS is not just about coding. It's not all about software development. There's also a very diverse range of careers within the tech industry. For example, like there's product management, there's design. So yeah, I guess that's kind of what got me interested. I feel like I wanted to explore more options within this field, and yeah, it led me to choose CSBBA.
You, Aung?
So I started programming, I think, back in middle school too. It was using Scratch. It was like the drag and drop coding thingy. And yeah, since then I've been just doing a lot of like projects. I've done a few projects for like a few non-profits in my high school career. I took CS classes in high school. I went to hackathons, and I just thought it would be a really cool career to have. Cause like Cindy said, like I don't really enjoy like the act of coding itself, right? But you can build a lot of things with code and using software. And I also like the electrical aspect of tech, like I like circuits and stuff like that. So that's why I chose computer engineering instead of computer science or software engineering.
I think that segues perfect because the reason I think I was asking you guys a bit about of your experience is because I think a lot of the people here watching are wondering are conflicted between different programs, like whether we should choose CS or SE or CSBBA, and I think there's a bunch of reasons. So it comes down to like what you're interested in, but I want to hear from you guys. What made you, I mean, it kind of goes together. We know about your experience now. So was it because of your experience that you directly chose your program? And you kind of, that your experience helped you decide like what program you wanted? I know for me, like I chose software engineering because I was super into engineering. I can relate to Ali like playing Minecraft, and I just like to build things. And I'm more of someone who likes to, I'm more of a practical person compared to doing more theoretical things. So I thought SE would be a better fit for me, and I still like really like to build things, and I'm also interested in the electrical and computer aspects of it, and that's what led me to choosing software engineering. So I thought it was a perfect fit for me. But what about Maryam? I want to hear from you on choosing computer science. Say, what was the reasoning behind that? Because there's of course SE and other programs.
Yeah, so I applied to engineering and CS. So those were the two that I was like debating between. And I only applied to computer engineering, not computer software engineering. So at Waterloo. So it was between computer engineering and CS. And what made me go into CS more was I think the flexibility because in engineering you have to take like a bunch of courses to meet the engineering requirements. Whereas in CS, you have a little bit more flexibility. You can take electives. And since I wasn't too sure what I wanted to do in the future, CS really piqued my interest because I read that there's like specializations that you can specialize in. And I was hoping that through that, I was able to really find my passion, see what I enjoy doing. And hopefully, like I also thought that taking electives will allow me to kind of see what else is out there, not only like coding specific, but also like maybe like user experience, learning about how like humans interact with computers and all of that. So that's why I chose CS. And I was also not a huge fan of physics. So I know that in engineering, there's a lot of physics. So I kind of like wanted to take the other route where I didn't have to take that much physics. But yeah.
Did you know what you wanted to specialize in when you already chose CS, or like you just wanted to keep your options open?
Yeah, so I actually read through the specializations, and one of my friends who is in upper year, she is currently specializing in human computer interaction. So she told me about it and what it is, and I found it very interesting to learn about how like humans interact with computers, how to make applications more user friendly. So after learning her experience and reading more about it, I was like, okay, this seems like a cool fit for me. But since I'm still in second year, I still don't. I'm not allowed to take the courses for it because it only opens up in third year. So I still don't have a perspective on it yet, but hopefully I enjoy it. Yeah.
So Cindy, you're kind of CS, right? Oh, because it's CSBBA. Do you still get the same flexibility as Maryam, or because you have like two degrees basically? Like, how does it work with your program?
Yeah, for sure. So unlike Maryam, we actually don't get the flexibility. For CSBBA, we are a full 2 degree in 5 years. So that means that for every term, we have to overload our courses. So the normal, I guess, course load for a CS student is 5 courses. That's kind of the standard. For CSBBA, you have to take 6 courses per term, or you have the option of just taking 5, but you have to take it during co-op. So we do take more courses. That also means we don't have any electives. So we take the core courses of CS and we take the core courses of the business degree. So that means there really isn't room for choosing electives, which is good and bad. I mean, if you're very interested in business, you want to learn more about the business world, then this degree allows you to kind of use those electives to explore, the core business courses, which I think is a plus for me. But I also know lots of people choose to not do CSBBA because they really can't take the business courses. It's a lot of work. And if you don't really enjoy it, then, it might be more worth it to just do CS.
So that's really interesting. So I want to ask now the engineers, Aung and Ali. So us, we don't get to choose. Or we do have like electives later during the year, later during our like 5-year program, but first year like we don't get to choose any. So did that go into consideration? Maybe let's start with Ali. When you were choosing between maybe CS or SE, like how did that look like for you?
Yeah, so I actually only applied to like CS programs basically across the board. So nothing but like CS at every university. Not every university that I applied to was a CS program. And I also applied to SE because that's also very closely related to CS. So, I mean, for me, from a choice perspective, software engineering officially is a blend between computer engineering and CS. That's according to at least the previous program director, which basically means we take the CS courses, right? And we also have SE versions of the CS courses, which, as you said, are a little bit more industry focused. So for example, like in first year, in one of our first courses, we learned Git, because Git, committing pull requests is something that you use often. and we start out with programming in C rather than functional programming. We do some functional programming in C, but CS students on the other hand start out with Racket, which is more theory, as you said, right? Now the choice for me was I'd done some practical stuff like robotics, where you write code for a physical system rather than it just being theoretical computer science. And knowing that software eng was sort of like hardware and software, but leaning more towards software, I sort of felt like, it'd be nice to know the hardware you're coding on when you're making the software. So I know you're at first year right now, but in second year, it's pretty cool because we take this ECE course, which teaches us about ARM processors. So you code in like full assembly, right? And then in an equivalent CS course that CS students also take, we turn a different kind of processor into normal like programming. So we basically figure out how programming languages are made, but from two different perspectives, from one more practical one and a more theoretical one. So I really like the blend of hardware and software. But funnily enough, I actually didn't have a choice between SE and CS because I only got SE, not CS. So yeah. So in the end, it worked out. It's the option I wanted, but there wasn't really a choice involved.
Aung, do you share like similar opinions to Ali, or was it something different for you?
I think mine was pretty similar-ish. So I got into CS and CE, right? And I was having a really difficult time choosing between the two. And I was actually leaning towards CS just because it had more flexibility. And I wasn't that interested in just focusing on school. I wanted to like try other things in university. Like for example, right now I'm in a design team. So like I wanted to like, do other things, and I know that engineering tends to have less flexibility when it comes to choosing courses that will allow you to have more free time. So yeah, but then I think what really made me choose CE was that I figured that if I wanted to CS, I probably would take courses using my optional courses to take courses that are similar to what CE students would take. So, and I think, and like going into CE would open more doors to like more electrical engineering opportunities, which I was also interested in trying to get into in addition to software. So I think that's why I chose CE. And regarding like theory versus practical stuff, like Ali, I think I'm also a lot more leaning towards the practical stuff. Like I'm not too interested in just theory, and I know that the CS people do a lot of like proofs and more theoretical stuff in their courses. For example, for us, we don't do that much proofs. Like even in our math courses, like we usually just like skim the proofs. We don't really have to know the proofs very well for our courses. And yeah, and like I'm not sure about SE, but for CE, our first year programming course uses C++, and we also have ECE 198, which is a lab, where we're actually making a real project. I think SE has SE 101 or something that's pretty similar. So I think I was more interested in like just doing something practical, and that's why I chose CE.
Is it okay if I interject for
jump
one
in,
thing?
jump in.
Yeah. So he meant the fact that he mentioned proofs in engineering. And yeah, that's true, except for SE, because SE takes the same proofs courses that CS students take. So we sort of, get the engineering math, but then we get the math proofs courses in both years. So first year we have Math 135, which is like a very famous, just introduction to algebra course. But in second year, we have an SE only course, which is pretty much all proofs. It's just called logic and computation. So, in regards to that, CE does do less proofs, but SE still dabbles in a lot of, software from like a proof perspective, right? It's still a university-based course where, a lot more, the theory might be applicable, but it's still a lot of theory.
So someone in the chat is asking because they're stuck between engineering and CS. So their question is, if anyone's stuck between engineering and CS, what should they consider doing? So I think if if anyone were to give an answer, because we're either in CS or either in engineering, we would give a very biased answer. So I think, how about this? We have someone from either Maryam or Cindy give an answer, and then someone in engineering give an answer on what your recommendations are, and you can draw your own conclusions from what we say, because I don't think there's any right or wrong answers. So does Maryam or Cindy want to go ahead?
I actually never considered an engineering option, so maybe Maryam, I know you applied to like CE and CS, maybe if you want to pitch in.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, this was a huge debate. My dad wanted me to go to engineering and I wanted to do CS. And I think ultimately what it came down to is thinking ahead, like thinking about what do you want to do in your 5 years at Waterloo? Like, do you want it to be more like, I guess, academic based, or do you want to be more like having more free time and I guess doing things like extracurriculars and also being able to take more electives, I guess. Because for me, what it came down to was that I wasn't too sure what I wanted to do in the future. Like, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do software engineering. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do or like hardware. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So CS was kind of a good path, I would say, because if I want to do more like hardware, I could take hardware electives, or because as a CS student, you do have more electives. And also I want to be more involved in university as well. I want to be part of clubs and councils. And I know by taking CS, I do have electives and I can choose those electives to be easier so that I have more time to do my hobbies. So yeah, I think I'm not too sure if I gave a good answer because I'm more biased towards CS, because now that I'm in CS, I'm like, okay, I think I do have more time, but also I'm not too sure because I'm not in engineering and I don't have many engineering friends to compare myself to. So maybe Ali or Aung can give a better answer. Not sure.
Yeah, Ali or Aung, or both of
I'm
you.
in
I mean, it
first
could
year,
be
so I
fine.
think Ali will have a better answer because like I just got here like 2 months ago, so I'm not very experienced yet. So
That's fair. That's fair. But like, guys, feel free to add in. I feel like we're multiple people. You can interrupt me. Okay. Wow. First of all, what engineering? Because the engineering department's very big. So when you say engineering in comparison to CS, I assume you either mean CE or SE or system design engineering. Because if you mean like biomedical or architectural, that's like a completely different question. So in regards to those three programs that are the CS equivalents in engineering, I like I definitely do think that CS people have more time, at least in second year. They have more freedom to either overload courses if they want to take like 6 courses like engineering is forced to, or they could see that a course maybe requires more attention, so then they balance it out by taking less courses that term. Whereas engineering, you either do the term or you don't. There's not really a choice, at least until later years. But by third, fourth year, it's sort of the same. Like I know for software eng, like 4A, like fourth year is literally 3 electives, and fourth year last term is literally just all electives. So by the end of it, it balances out. Everyone just takes whatever course. But an aspect that I haven't heard mentioned is people want extracurriculars and other things out of university. I think a really important thing out of university is the people you meet, right? And the friends you make, or the connections, whichever way you wanna phrase it. Every sort of university CS culture thing you see is people get together in a university and then later on, I don't know, they make a startup or something, or together they like network their way up and they like get better because they have each other, right? They go, if you want to go far, you have to go together, not alone. So the main thing that engineering had for me was that it had a cohort system where if you were to struggle with 6 hard courses a term, you'd be struggling with 120 people that have the same exact identical schedule as you for all classes. So in that way, I'm living off campus right now in like a student housing residence, and all my roommates are also in SE. So it sort of feels liberating. So like when you're don't understand a topic, you just walk over to the next door and there's someone there that's also doesn't understand it. So then you walk to the third door, and then maybe you can all finally understand it with enough people having pieces of the puzzle. So that's one thing that like pushed me to engineering, because clubs and other social events, I still attend them, obviously to a way more limited capacity than I would have if I had more time. But I feel like the people you would meet in a cohort, since you're all going to take the same classes together at least for 3 years straight, you can develop much more meaningful relationships, or it would be easier to develop relationships than like having to find someone that shares more than one class with you in other programs.
Yeah, can I pitch in? Yeah, sorry. So I think that's a really good point, because for me, I personally found it a bit harder to find friends and also to find like roommates, like Ali mentioned, because all my friends are like, I don't know if you guys know the sequences, but like there's sequence 1 to 4. So for CS, so a lot of people have different sequences and they might not align, and it's harder to find roommates or friends in general. But also I think you can have a good balance. If you are like good friends, you will still be able to have like good contact, but not as much as if you were in SE, where you're kind of like stuck together for the next 5 years. So yeah, that's also a good point. But also, I know that for CS, it's more flexible to change your like sequence, whereas for SE, it's not. So like if you get a co-op for next summer, but you're in engineering, you have to stay in school, then you can't accept the co-op. But for CS, it's more flexible to move around your work schedule, your work term and your school term. So that's also something to keep in mind, because my mentor was actually a SE student, but he switched over to CS because he got a really good co-op, but he couldn't stay in SE if he took that co-op. So that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, that's also a really good point, because some companies only have summer internships, so you have to wait like till the next 2 years to apply. But at least maybe during quarantine, because school is online, I've seen a couple examples in like the 2024 SE cohort where people did take 2 co-op terms back to back, just because the courses were online anyways. So either they took a co-op while studying, a bunch of people do that, or but definitely CS, if you get a nice co-op, you can say, you know what, I'm going to push studying back, and it's way more accommodating.
Okay, I think so what I would add to this conversation, for the person asking this questions, you're stuck between engineering and CS. For me, the first thing I would recommend you doing is looking at the curriculum of all the programs you're interested in, because we do offer different courses. So I'm going to paste a link in the chat. This is for the software engineering curriculum. It's something I took a look at when I was applying to software engineering, and same thing for CS. You can find it somewhere. But for engineering, like you can see all our courses. So all the courses I'm taking right now, like programming principles, classical mechanics, linear algebra. Take a look at that. See if these courses actually interest you, because that's going to be the next 5 years of your life. And for software engineering, like all of these are mandatory. So if you look at these courses and you're like, oh god, I don't want to take these classes, then don't choose software engineering. That's my first point. I think what Ali touched upon on the cohort system is I totally agree with that, because I've only been here for 2 months as well, because I'm a first year, but I've been able to meet a lot of great friends. I've spoken with some friends in CS who are also first year, and yeah, as Maryam said, like it's a bit harder for them to make friends because they're not that cohort. And when we say cohort, we mean like all of our classes, basically we all take them together, because we don't have that flexibility. But CS, because they choose a lot of their own classes, there's like people are always moving around, so you don't have the same like group of friends around. So that's my second point. Something I want to talk with Maryam about is like this, talk about like getting involved in extracurriculars. That's something I've been doing as well as an engineer. So I've been able to find time as well. Like I think any like CS or SE, we're all like super busy with school because it's a rigorous program. So I didn't quite understand what you meant. Like, how is that a pro of CS that we don't get as engineers, like in terms of getting involved in extracurriculars?
Sorry, I should have made it that more clear. I guess for me, what it meant is that like for CS, there's like I found that there's specific clubs for us, like women in computer science. Actually, if you want to be an exec, you can only be in CS or SE. So I guess that's one extracurricular that I couldn't have done if I was in computer engineering. And I guess there's a little bit more time in CS that you get from taking easier electives that you could spend in for your extracurriculars or sports or stuff like that. But you're right. Like if you're in engineering, you definitely can have time for extracurriculars. What I meant is more of like you get a little bit of extra time, so you can do more extracurriculars maybe. But that depends on your schedule as well. So
yeah. So Aung, you said you were involved in one of the design teams, right? So which one are you involved in?
Well, I am in Waterloo right now. I'm one of the embedded team members, and
Nice.
so far I've only written a simple Python script to control the CAN system. But I think with design teams, it really the amount of time that you want to put into it is really just up to you. Not a lot of design teams will actually enforce some kind of time commitment on you. I know some design teams do, but a lot of teams are pretty flexible. So whether you're in CS or whether you're in engineering, you might have more time to put into design teams or other extracurriculars, but that's really just up to you. And I would say that for engineering, it is true that you definitely have less time on average than CS people, like Maryam said. Especially in the first few years, just because I think engineering takes 7 courses or 6, while CS people take 5. I'm not sure about the difficulty of the courses, but yeah. But I think in university, grades matter a lot less when it comes to what happens with your career. In high school, you're applying to university, which is basically 50-50 split between grades and extracurriculars. But in university, when it comes to getting co-op and getting doing things with your career, I guess, nobody really looks at your grades too much. Some companies do look at grades in co-op, but from what I heard from the upper years, most companies don't really care about your GPA. It's really just about what you've done outside of school. So as long as you're passing your courses, that's fine. A lot of my friends in CE just really only care about passing the courses. They don't really care too much about getting high grades, which I'm not sure about SE, because I know that SE tends to have more competitive people just because it has a higher admission average. But yeah, I think that's a pretty liberating fact about university in general, I guess. You don't care about grades too much. So I would advise people to focus more on things outside of school when you get into university, and focus less on getting those high 90s and 100s.
Yeah, I want to come to Cindy to offer a perspective more on the business side. I know a lot of people go into CSBBA because they're interested in product management, or they're interested in starting doing a startup. So what can you offer? What kind of people should apply to CSBBA rather than CS or engineering?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess for myself, speaking from personal experience, if you're someone who did a lot of business extracurriculars in high school and you do find an interest in business is actually very diverse, right? So it's not just one thing. What business entails is marketing, entrepreneurship, finance. There's so much to it. So if you have an interest and you also enjoy technical problem solving, so for example, you love math, love CS, and you're having a hard time choosing between the two, then CSBBA kind of gives you the best of both worlds. So you're actually able to enroll in all the courses that a normal CS student has. You're also able to enroll in all the courses that a Laurier BBA student has access to. So yeah, I guess in a sense, I think what business has really taught me is it doesn't just come down to the knowledge that you learn in class, right? Not just about accounting or doing economics. It's also a way of like how you present yourself. So we learn about like, pitching. We learn a lot about like starting your own business, which I think are all helpful courses that will help you, no matter if it's in a job or if you decide to start your own venture.
So I see some questions in the chat. I think because a lot of the people, almost all of the participants attending are high school students. So obviously it's great that we're experiencing all of this, but first we got to get in. So I think we can spend a bit of time giving some tips on how specifically you got into your program. So maybe we'll go around the table and maybe talk about your so there was the first question is the 9 upvotes. What are your averages in extracurriculars to get into Waterloo? We kind of touched upon it when I asked you guys about your experiences, but talk about that, and then talk about so just give some tips to because someone asked what would you call a safe spot for an average. I think that question, for example, you can look it up on Google. There's I think yesterday at the opening ceremony we had the director of admissions and engineering, Dr. Billy Bishop, and he talked a bit about that. But let's start with Maryam in CS. What was your average, and what extracurriculars did you put in your AIF your AIF to get into CS?
Yeah, so my average for CS, it was different from engineering because the prerequisites or your top 6 is different. So for Eng, it was a 92, but then for CS, it was a 94 point something, 0.5 or something like that. So yeah, I was on the, I think I usually say that I was more on the lower side because now that like I got in and when we talk about these things, a lot of my friends were like 96, 97, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe then my extracurriculars helped me get in. So what I wrote more of is like trying to have like a more well-rounded like extracurriculars. So I had more of sports and also like tech and CS and programming. So for sports, I was swim team captain on my high school swim team, so that I had to put in a lot of hours. And being a captain for grade 11 and 12, I had a lot of like responsibilities. So I talked a lot about the skills I learned as a captain. And I was also part of Engineers Without Borders. So I helped plan events for my school related to engineering. I was also part of, I had 2 part-time jobs as well. So I talked more of like having a well-rounded application instead of just focusing on tech and CS and all of that. So maybe that helped me get in. But one thing that I would recommend is try to get your applications read by as many people as you can. I had like a rough draft done before the Christmas breaks. So I got like my teachers to read it, my friends to read it, upper years to read it. And then during the Christmas break, that's when I like really tried to finish polishing it up. And then I submitted before school started in January. So like I got that done with early, so I didn't have to worry about it in January. So get it done early. It just takes a lot of stress off of you. So yeah.
I submitted like last minute. I think most people submit last minute, right? But Ali, do you want to jump in? And what was your strategy applying to CS, SC, and other programs?
All right. Before I start, I put some links in the chat for some useful strategies I used, specifically the CompEng blog, a previous SE student that talks about how the Waterloo engineering admission system works in a little more detail, and then the official chances for fall 2022 applicants from the admissions professor himself. So you guys can check that out for some more written resources if you like, as a summary of this. But I talk about this a lot because I run Eng chats. I'm an engineering ambassador at Waterloo. So people basically book to like talk about their chances and whatnot. And so, this is a conversation I've repeated many times. Before I start, I applied at 11:59, 58 and like 59 seconds. Like I have a screenshot of me clicking the submit button at like the last second it's due. So I'll find that screenshot somewhere and like make it an NFT or something. But get it done early. That's a really big point. Don't be like me. But even if you are like me, it might turn on your favor. So my top 6 average for I think I only remember it for Eng because it was the same for CS for the admission year 2019. So I'm a 2025, but I got my offer in 2019. So back when pre-COVID school was a thing, was 88.5% for top 6. Definitely don't try to aim for that, but that was like pre-COVID admissions, where if you had good ECs, it would help you. So my top 6 was 88.5. My adjustment factor was 9, and my extracurriculars were, I had a part-time job at Kumon, where I was a math and English instructor. I did a internship in high school, like the co-op course in high school. So for like 4 months part-time, I would basically work as like a web designer for this like private college. I made some interesting personal projects. So I made a game engine. I made a programming language, both written in Java, which was pretty cool. It's not as impressive as it sounds, specifically the programming language, but the game engine was pretty cool. And I was also a member of the student council at my school. And I was the lead software for our robotics team at our school. And we went to provincials in Ontario, but not worlds. And other than that, like hobby-wise, I did put the cinematography thing in my resume because as Maryam said, they're sort of looking for people that have something to do outside of school as well. So if your extracurriculars are also school, then it's like, a well-rounded applicant is better than an academically focused applicant is what they're getting at. So I also put in this like clothing brand thing I did in high school, like where, I like made clothes, I made advertisements for them, and then like we sold a bunch. So that was also, I guess that's basically it for my like major ECs. One big tip I can give is put your GitHub link on your, on your AIF in some way, shape, or form when listing your ECs. Because that way, if you say, oh, I made this thing like 6 years ago, they can actually open the repo and see the commit was 6 years ago. So then they know you're not bluffing. It's sort of like taxes. If you get audited, you're screwed. But like as long as you don't get audited, you're fine. So you want to make sure, you don't commit tax fraud on your AIF. But yeah, other than that, don't do projects for the sake of them being projects, because that will just turn out to not be a good project. Most of the things that I put on my AIF, I did them before knowing the AIF was a thing. So I guess like my advice to you is also don't switch programs because of like your chances. Like I get that a lot of people want to get into Waterloo for the sake of Waterloo, but I'd much rather choose my program than my university. Because in the end, changing what you study is different from changing your environment. So yeah.
Two follow-up questions for you, Ali. One, when you talk about adjustment factors, someone asked like how you could find that, and secondly is about the end chats. If you could elaborate on what that is, because even myself, I don't know what that is.
Oh yeah.
Like, are they useful and how do they work?
Yeah. So I will put the link down in the chat. So NChats is this program that Waterloo has where you could sign up basically, and you'll be matched with an engineering ambassador from a program of your choice. So let's say you say, oh, I want to talk for an hour with someone that's in CE. So you get matched and then they set up a call and it's just you and them for an hour. You get to ask any question you want about anything. And it's sort of like a private one-on-one call that the university offers. So upcoming students can actually speak with someone that's in the program right now, rather than just read brochures. So for example, I'm a software engineering ambassador for that. So if you choose to be matched with a software engineering student, they might set up a call and then we set up the time and we just talk about stuff. So that's NChats, and that's the registration link. The adjustment factor, I believe it's different every year because it changes. The adjustment factor is basically how much grade inflation happens in your school. And Waterloo measures this by looking at your high school admission average and the average that you got first year over a span of 6 years from people from your school. So it's nothing official, but it's one of those things where if you Google it, you will find it. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, the 2016 to 2021, because they have to. Someone wrote a message like, and then they requested it. So you can try to find your high school there and see what the number is. Basically, the lower it is, the better. So I think 9 is pretty low. So you were
It
pretty
was
advanced.
the lowest the year I applied. So yeah.
Aren't
So-
CJEPs even lower?
CJEP is 5, but they take an extra year of school, so it's like grade 13. It's
Yeah,
sort
I'm in
of-
CJEP.
Okay, there you go. Yeah.
Cool. What about Aung? How was your application process? Like, what were your strategies? What were your ECs?
Yeah, sure. So I think some advice I can give is that something that people don't like to hear too much is that grades do matter quite a bit, in my opinion, when it comes to getting into university. Like that's probably like the most sure thing you can aim for, because that's a numerical value, right? But like we've seen, like people get in with like lower averages because they have extracurriculars. So like Waterloo does care about extracurriculars a lot more than other universities in Canada. Yeah. So that being said, what was the question? My admission average for CE was, I think, a 99 point something. And then for CS was also a 99 point something. I don't remember the actual decimal, but I was definitely aiming like pretty high in my grade 12 year. My adjustment for engineering was a 10, I believe, 10 or 11. I'm not sure, but yeah. And for my extracurriculars, I talked a lot about my leadership experiences that I had. So I was the president of a few clubs in my school in my grade 12 year. It was math, physics, coding, and engineering club. So for those clubs, like I think clubs are a really easy way to show that you are able to lead, like to be able to host meetings, to be able to organize a body of students together, to have weekly meetings, monthly meetings, whatever. So I talked about that. I was the president of a nonprofit organization that provided opportunities for people to play chess. So like it doesn't, like your extracurriculars don't have to be related to tech. It can be other things, as long as you're showing that you have skills that might be transferable to your success in university as a co-op student and as a academic student. And I also did a few tech extracurriculars. Like I made a few projects for nonprofits. I held leadership positions in tech for a few nonprofits. So I think tech extracurriculars do help you a lot compared to other things, because Waterloo does have a co-op program. So like they want to see that that you have a high chance of getting hired. So, and another way to show that is to show that you have actual employment experience, so like actual paid experience. So I had one like paid job that was a summer camp. So I talked about that, and I worked with a few very early stage companies that I started with my friends. So I talked a little bit about entrepreneurship. The companies didn't really do anything. We kind of just disbanded after like a year or two, but it shows that you have the initiative to go out of your way to pursue opportunities. Other extracurriculars that you might have that you might not have thought of, I think Ali and other people have mentioned this, but personal projects, definitely talk about those, especially if they are related to technology, or whether and like if you also have a personal website, just put that in. I think I actually made a personal website just for the sake of my Waterloo application. So like, because like that is actually, I will say it might be a bit better than just putting your GitHub link in, because for GitHub, like they have to like look through your repos and try to find the project, right? But then for a personal project, like you can like make it in a way so that you can basically sell yourself as you want it, and you can customize it. Some people have told me that admission officers don't actually click on external links, but I feel like they probably do, especially if you have a HTTPS certificate on your website. So yeah, and that was my experience. Yeah.
I think something really special about you is also you're a Schulich leader, correct?
Yes.
So do you want to talk a bit about that? Because that being a Schulich leader, I think you also go. I personally didn't apply to Schulich leader, but I know it's a pretty like prestigious and competitive thing to get into. So how did that go alongside your application process?
Yeah, sure. So for people who don't know, the Schulich Leader Scholarship, basically you have to get nominated by your high school. So it's one person per high school, and if you get nominated, you can apply to the national scholarship. So like it's a pretty small applicant pool because you only have one person from each high school applying, and the scholarship, and then and they choose I believe 10 people for each university. So for Waterloo, it was 5 engineering students and 5 other students. I believe all of the other 5 were CS students this year. I'm not sure if I'm correct, but that might be true. That's what I and I think what so and then there was an external application for the scholarship, but ultimately the university decides. So not so like your actual university application also applies to the scholarship application as well. Yeah, so for the external application, it was I think 2 essays that you had to write, and you also had to give 2 references from like your teachers or your other extracurricular peers that you may know, or like supervisors you may know. And yeah, that's basically the process. I'm not sure if you want me to describe like other things.
Someone asked in the chat, can you do Schulich if you're not in high school, like if you're homeschooling? Do you know the answer to that?
That's a good question. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think
You have
maybe
to-
you could go. There's a Schulich website, and look for information on that. If not, you can always send an email to them because you have to get nominated, right? That's the thing. So I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Cool. And Cindy, what do you want to talk about? How your application was like?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess in terms of averages, so I was part of the IB program. So for those who are also IB, I predicted a 41 or 42 out of 45. So translating that to the Ontario average, I think my average when applying to CSBBA was around a 97. Yeah, so my HLs were, in case anyone's interested, my HLs were math, econ, English, SLs were physics, chem, and French. So then speaking of AIF, the things I decided to showcase were kind of 2 sides. So the first one being business, the second one being more of like tech and like math type of stuff. So for business, I participated in like DECA and FBLA, which were both pretty big business conferences in high school, and I did end up placing some awards, so I did showcase that. And in grade 12, I actually also applied to the leadership board of FBLA, so I served as one of the execs on FBLA Canada's. Yeah, on top of that, I also did some charity club type of things. So I was president of Free the Children for 2 years and also events coordinator for Oxfam. So I think those were kind of like the business leadership side that I showcased. And in terms of the math and tech, I didn't really have any like GitHub or like website stuff to showcase. So what I did have though was I tried to do as many math contests as possible. So I think I did everything excluding Euclid because there was COVID. So I think that was like called off or something. So yeah, I did do 3 years of math contests, and I also participated in a hackathon. So starter hacks from Waterloo, even though I saw in the Q&A, someone asked, should I still mention that you went to a hackathon but wasn't able to submit a project? That was exactly for me. I didn't even know what a hackathon was. I kind of just like went there. I was like, yo, this sounds cool. Let's just do it. But I didn't really have the skills to, code a fully fledged project or anything. But I did still mention it because I think it shows interest in not only, Waterloo, since it's their hackathon, but also showcasing that you're taking initiative outside of school to kind of advance your skills in a way. So yeah, that's kind of what I showcase. In terms of strategies, I think something that I tried to do in my AIF to stand out was I tried to show how I kind of resonated with the school's message. So Beyond Ideas, pretty sure everyone has heard it at this point. So I just briefly talked about what Beyond Ideas means to me and how through my actions during high school or like activities I did was able to showcase that and how I'll like further advance that message in uni.
Wow, this is so cool. All of you guys are so accomplished. I am so honored to be here, talking with you guys. If I were to say for the people watching this, participants, I know some of you might feel like, oh my God, okay, these guys are insane. Like, I'm totally not going to get in. I think all of us, like, you know, we have passions, we have interests that we pursue out of school. The main thing is that, yeah, you can notice that we don't get in just because of our grades. Like, we actually are going out of our way out of school to pursue our interests. And I think that's the most important thing. If you guys attended the opening ceremony yesterday, it was the same thing that the director of admissions said. They want to see that, yeah, you're spending time outside of school. And one really important thing that he pointed out is about for example, hackathons. The hackathons, you know, like doing a math contest that's a few hours is not the same thing as pursuing something that you've done for years and years and years. So make sure you, first of all, when it comes to extracurriculars, it can get very toxic quickly. And I also went through this process very recently, right? Applying to university is like doing extracurriculars maybe more because it looks good than it is something that you're genuinely passionate about. And I think we all need to be very careful not to fall into that. You know, I tried a bunch of things in high school to find out my interests, like being part of student council, or you know, badminton was something I was doing in high school because I really like playing badminton. So I think you don't need to like be you don't need to have cured cancer when you're in high school or anything like that, right? Like, we're all humans. So the most important thing for anyone like applying is like find things that you're passionate about and really focus on those things out after school. At the same time, you got to keep your grades up because as Aung pointed out, grades are still extremely important. For engineering, the baseline is 85%. So if you don't have an 85% average, you have just no shot. And even like 86, 87, it's like kind of sitting on the edge. So make sure you guys put the grades up. The reason grades are important is just like they want to know that you're going to succeed academically, right? So once you're in university, because it is not easy here, and they want to make sure if they admit you that you're going to be able to push through the difficulties. So yeah, that's what some piece of advice I would give. So yeah, is there anything else you guys want to ask people in the people watching, or any of the panelists want to add on anything talking about emissions?
Yeah, I wanted to give a little bit more perspective into the 85 floor.
Yeah.
So here's a good way to think about it. Why it's 85? The average amount of the average percentage that your average from high school will drop compared to your average in university is 16.3%. So if you get an 85 in high school, that means you're getting like under 60 in university. And if you get under 60 in engineering, you can't move on to the next term. Like it's a rule. You have to get over a 60 average to be able to proceed with your program. So technically they're basically using statistics and saying, okay, well, that's our baseline for success, over 60 average compared to high school. So that's why I'm guessing it's 85. I don't have an official source, but like I think it makes sense.
Yeah. If not, I think we'll move on. Is there any more? I think now we wanted to take the last section of this panel, the last 30 minutes we have to get questions from you guys. So someone asked, what's the passing mark for engineering courses? Aung, do you want to answer that? Do you know the passing mark?
Yes, so to pass is a 50, like usual, but to pass the term is a 60. So like your overall average has to be higher than a 60, but you also have to get over 50 on like each individual course.
Yeah, so each course you need to get 50%, but overall you need 60%. I think can't find the page, but the Waterloo, they put up like, oh, if you fail a course, like engineering, I think you can fail and like no, you can't fail. You can fail a course in engineering, but you have to redo the course. But if you fail if your average is not enough, like you'll be out of the program, unfortunately. Okay, so let's see. How important are the yearly Waterloo math contests? So by raise of hand, who did the math contest here? The like the Euclids. So Cindy, Maryam. Well, all of you guys did. Okay, I did not. I did, I think, one of them. I didn't do it for this year. So how important do you guys think it is? Feel free to jump in. Like, yeah. Cindy,
I think it's I think it can't hurt you. That's all I'll say. It just can't hurt you. If you do good, it's a boost. If you don't do good, it's whatever.
Completely agree. I feel like for the AIF, I know they explicitly ask, like, have you done this contest, this contest, this contest? So I think they're just looking for people who, have shown by doing these contests in terms of your scores. If you do great, like awesome. If you don't, then at least you did it, right? Which is better than not doing it.
Yeah. The reason I didn't do it is just, well, I got lazy, I think. And they gave me an offer for SC, and then, I applied to CS, and I wanted to get SC more. So I just ended up not doing it after I got into, I think I said I was going to do it, but I didn't do it for CS. But I think it matters. Yeah, it matters a bit more for the math department because SC is under engineering, and it's also under the math department, but I think the math department in general cares more about the math competitions. But essentially, you should do it. Like I think it increases your chance no matter what result you have. Like that's the general advice I hear is like because if you do it, like you're showing interest, you're going out of your way out of school to do these things. But yeah, there's one question: which program should I apply to if I want to become data scientist? Like I would think CS, but I don't know. Does anyone have a good answer for that? Maryam, since you're in CS, would you say your program is a good fit for data science?
On this article, so maybe this can help. I have no clue. Maybe this
I feel like SE would not be that great for
Yeah.
data science specifically because it would take so many like ECE courses, which are not really relevant.
Yeah.
But we do have like AI specialization, which
Data-
kind of
Sorry, yeah. At CS, we have to take a lot of stat courses and like,
yeah.
so I assume it's computer science or math.
Yeah, I just wanted to pitch in. I was going to say, from my understanding, can't you declare like the stats major under a CS degree, or you can declare under a math, right? So you can apply to either math or CS and then declare stats as your major, or I don't know what they call it, but yeah, there is that choice.
Ali, do you know?
All right, prepare for a flood of information. Okay, so CS has more flexibility, which basically means you can take more stats courses, i.e. better data scientist. SE has a stats course that you take in second year. It's SE only. It's called software engineering, statistics for software engineering. But there's an option to switch out that course for like a beefier maths, for 2 beefier math stats courses.
Yeah.
So you could take 2 stats courses or one stats course if you like stats. But if you're in SE, you can also do joint honors in applied math, combinatorics and optimization, pure math, or statistics. So if you really wanted to, you could also do joint statistics honors with software engineering. But if you sort of only care about data science and you really just want to go that route, I think CS might have less content, but also more focused. You could focus more on data science. Whereas with SE, you have all of SE, but you can like strap on a statistics rocket on top of it if you wanted to.
So yeah, I don't think we give it a satisfying answer, but I think you can look into SE, the options Ali mentioned, or look into the CS options. Take a look at the courses you're gonna take. But I would say like even if you're in SE and not doing those, like you can find internships that are like data science interns, and you can get that experience. it's not because you have a certain degree. Like I know people who are not in a CS degree. Like a lot of people in math, they end up like just not even CS and they end up working at, big FAANG companies later down the road. Like you can learn these things outside of school as well. All right, we got a bunch of questions coming in, so that's gonna be fun. Let's start with if the first one, if I'm between civil engineering and CS, what should I consider more in terms of salary, struggles in uni, and etc. I think we can like even more broadly talk about like choosing a career as a software engineer. I think maybe Ali or Aung, like engineering versus like doing other types of engineering. I don't know if any of you considered or like other types of career opportunities that were not tech focused. I feel like a lot of us, though, we said that when we were young, we already kind of knew we wanted to go into this. So I don't know if there's anyone, because I actually was interested in aerospace engineering when I was younger, but I ended up making the switch, and there's a bunch of reasons going into that. I don't know if there's anyone else in similar shoes who considered other career opportunities. Else, I can chime in. Aung, did you want to say something?
Yeah, so I did consider this quite a bit. So for me, it was between like software jobs and being an electrical engineer.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say that software right now pays very well, like compared to other jobs, comparatively. That's just because like they're really in high demand right now. I think that's why a lot of people are kind of like flooding into these CS, CE, SE programs. But I was just saying to do what you want to do. But like I think you asked about salary, and I would say that you probably will have a higher salary working as a software engineer, compared to other engineers. Like maybe like petroleum might pay better. I'm not exactly sure, but I will say that like software engineers make a lot of money, especially if you get like those big tech companies, and they also have a lot of benefits. Yeah, if your question was just how much money you'll make, probably software. I'm not sure if anybody else has differing opinions.
Ali, do you want to talk?
Sorry.
Or?
Yeah. No.
Go ahead.
This seems like a very loaded question, and
Yeah.
I think it has more to do with what you want to do than in terms of salary and struggles in uni, because struggles in uni are like one bit of your life. Uni is going to be over, and salary is also like it's a passive part of your life, but it's also not your life, right? So I really want to know what the etc. means, because there's a lot more when you're comparing, building and architecting buildings and software. They're both architecture, but I think if you're just going based off salary, as Aung said, yeah, software is more in demand and you're going to have a better salary doing so. But you're not going to want to go to work if you don't like your work.
Yeah.
So I think you should sit down and figure out what you really want to do first before considering the salary.
Yeah. I think you should figure out your values in life. I can't deny like money, like let's not deny like money plays a part in your decisions, right? Like if software didn't pay anything, I probably would not choose this field as much as I like it. So you got to figure out like where do you want to be, in a few years? And that's a really tough question. Like when I was going through university application, that was because I also applied to other universities in the United States, and those were different programs and different ways of learning. Like they have like Waterloo is very technical, I would say. Like we all have engineering courses, and then those universities they have a broader like they offer philosophy courses, literature courses that I would have to take. It just made me and writing the essays kind of made me put my life into perspective. So I think, it's a very loaded question. It's very tough for us to answer without knowing more details. But as a general advice I would give is to just figure out like what you want in life. Like think deeply about it. You still have some time between deciding, and maybe just apply to both. Maybe you'll just be accepted to CS or civil engineering. Maybe you don't have to choose. So yeah, Ali, you want to add something?
Yeah, I wanted to. I sorry to Uno reverse card you, but I sort of like wanted to say a good metric is figure out what you would do for free, and then do that. Like, figure out what you would do if there was literally no pay in it, and then pursue exactly that, because that way you'll kind of feel like you're not working anymore. You're kind of doing what you were gonna do anyway. So for me, I was like, I want to create things, and if I'm, if I consider, at one point I considered code like break time. I'm like, I take a break from homework to code. So I was like, okay, if I'm getting paid for this, then like.
But at the same time, I would argue like that there's certain things like if you make your hobby your job, you're gonna start hating it, and that's why for me, choosing software engineering was the right decision. Like I actually have interest in like mechanical and electrical. So maybe I could have done computer engineering or mechatronics or electrical engineering. But for me, I just saw myself more as doing these things as hobbies and having coding being the main thing. And software engineering has like aspects of it, but it's not like everything I'm taking is either mechanical or the hardware stuff essentially. So yeah, I guess I'm offering a different perspective. Ali, you're offering yours, and there's no like right or wrong answer, I would say. So take our advice with a grain of salt and figure out what works for you. Okay. Next up, this one has 2 upvotes. Do you find that there are courses in SC/CE that are unapplicable in the field you're headed in? I mean, Aung and I were like still quite young, like in terms of we're still first years. I don't know, Aung, if you have do you want to answer? Like, I would say yeah. No, I haven't found anything unapplicable so far. Like linear algebra and calculus are all like super useful. But Ali, I don't know, like in second year, do you find that there's courses that are not useful at all?
We take chemistry, but we study software.
Oh, chemistry. But chemistry is to get the engineering degree.
Yeah. So, but that's still like a course you're technically paying for, right? So, I guess that's the one that's unapplicable. Maybe physics, but if you're writing like physics simulation software, yeah, mostly applicable, I'd say.
Like I looked through some of the courses. I would say like chemistry, you probably won't need it as an electrical/software engineer. Classical mechanics, which is the first year course that we're taking right now, maybe like sometimes it feels like it's not very applicable because as a electrical/software engineer, you probably won't be doing a lot of classical mechanics. As long as you know the basics, that should be good. I know that a big complaint among SE and ECE people is the first year physics course, just because it goes a lot more depth into these like classical mechanics problems than like we will realistically need as electrical/software engineers. But honestly, other than like the sciences, so like physics, chemistry, actually the second year you take electromagnetism. I'm not sure about SE, but ECE you do. Like that would be useful, like right? Because if you're taking circuit courses in the upper years, you need to like understand the fundamentals of electricity and magnetism. Yeah, so I guess my summary is that there's a few, but I haven't found like 2.
I know the question is not related to you, Cindy, but I'm curious because you're CSBBA and most of your courses are also chosen. What's your perspective on like how do you find your courses? Do you find that a lot of them are not relevant even though they're interesting, or are all of them like what's your opinion on your courses? Are they applicable in the field you're headed in?
Yeah, for sure. So I think that everything right now is a little bit too early. I feel like in first and second year in general, none of your courses are that applicable to what you'll actually be doing in the job field, right? But I think that from these courses, what you can actually learn, like for example, we mentioned like first year CS courses, like CS 135. That's the racket course, right? I can't remember, but yeah, it doesn't actually teach you applicable programming language, but it does teach you the fundamentals of, like what is recursion, how do you do it. So I think that I feel like any course you can get some sort of value out of it that will benefit you like in the long term, but it's not going to be directly applicable.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I guess like when I said directly yes or no that I didn't find any courses that were not relevant, I guess I take a really optimistic eye. When we talk about like classical mechanics, for example, yeah, chances are like we're not going to use this in the future if you're just doing software. Like for me, I'm interested in like making stuff, and so I probably need to use physics. So that's why I say that. I think for example, classical mechanics, what's more important, what they're teaching you is actually how to problem solve, how to think, and that's what they're trying to teach you. It's not just like memorize this formula and then apply it. And even later down the road, I spoke with someone else, like a mentor that I have like here for Waterloo. I think university is also learning and finding out like what you like and what you don't like. So even when it comes down like later on when you take electives, maybe you can be more adventurous in what you choose. Maybe they're not like, even if they're not interesting or like you don't find them relevant, as Cindy pointed out, like it helps you realize that, and that's a good learning experience. And same thing goes with like doing internships, because I think all of us are a co-op. So you might not find a co-op that's interesting to you, but was that a waste of time? Not necessarily, because you learn that this field is not interesting to you. Like for me, I learned I don't want to do front end for the rest of my life because I don't enjoy that. So it wasn't a total waste of time. Like I learned that I don't enjoy that. So that's just my perspective. I don't know if you guys agree or disagree.
I don't know if I'm playing 3D chess here to justify the physics course, but a lot of people also call it like the sucker punch course. Like you get into university, like, okay, I'm in. I was like good in high school, right?
Yeah.
And then you're doing CS courses. You're like, okay, I know CS. I'm comfortable. And at least like in like my cohort, the course difficulty, like the perceived difficulty was so high that everyone was convinced this course was literally put in place just to like humble you in first term. So it has sort of that effect too, where a course is like so out of left. You're like, oh, I'm studying software, but this is like a completely unrelated course. But in the real world, you studied software, but now you have to like apply it to like, I don't know, some oil system or like financial system, and you have to go learn the other stuff really quickly so you can actually code it in, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
there's a lot of questions and we have a limited amount of time. I'm sorry, like I took a bit longer for each question. So if you guys in the chat, like whatever question you think is the most like relevant, like upvote it and it'll be at the top so we know how to cover it. So right now the question at the top is about mechatronics, system design, and computer engineering courses. I don't think we talked too much about computer engineering. We don't have anyone in system design or mechatronics today, but Aung, maybe can you talk about your courses right now? Are they all ECE courses, or do you have some math courses? How does it look like for you, your curriculum?
Yeah, so I'm basically all East. Like, obviously different courses have different course titles. So like I have Math 117, which is calculus for engineers. Math 115, which is linear algebra for engineers, which is the same as the SE people. The rest are basically all ECE courses. I have a communications course, but yeah, but other than that, it's all ECE. And
yeah, I think the best way for you to find out is just go through go click on the link I sent. I sent it for software engineering, but right next to it there's nano-eng, mechatronics, mechanical engineering. Each of these pages they list out the courses, so you can see and you can click on the course and find out what that course is exactly. Like for mechanical, I see like fluid mechanics, heat transfer that you need to take. So click on that and that will give you a better answer than what we can give you. So next question, differences in networking and clubs between CS and engineering. Very interesting. I think we can talk about that. Like the extracurricular component. How is it? Is there any different between CS and engineering? Maybe Maryam, do you want to jump in?
I'm a little confused by this question. Like, as in, topics to
Well, I think
conversate
it's
about?
like opportunity. Do you have different opportunities when you're in CS or versus engineering for
Oh.
extracurriculars? I would say no.
I would say no, but like some clubs, like Women Computer Science, I'm part of currently, if you want to be an exec, you got to be in SC or CS. So some clubs might like restrict what program you're in to be able to be on exec, but if you just want to participate in any events, I'm sure you can come as long as you're.
I don't think they would say no to you.
No, definitely.
Just because you're a specific program, unless like it's like being an exec. I think there's the design teams that it's mostly engineering students, but even for that, I don't think because you're in CS they would refuse you. So I don't say there's any major differences between CS and engineering when it comes to networking and clubs. If anyone wants to chime in at any second, feel free to just talk. Else, I'm going to move on to the next question. What's the lowest cutoff mark for the CS course? For Maryam or Cindy. So ours is 50% and then 60% overall average. Is that the same for CS and yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exact same.
Exact same. Okay. Does having ECs in university have any effect on your grade or job applications? Extracurriculars like clubs, sports, start a business side, and not side project have any effect? Okay. So having extracurriculars affect your grade at university and job applications? How do you guys go about that?
I would say I can't really talk about my grade because I don't know how you can see like if it takes up too much time. Yeah, of course, like you're gonna have to spend more time on your extracurricular than school. But for job apps, I think yes, because during a lot of my interviews, they're very interested in like how I was involved in school and how I can use these skills and like the workforce, I guess. So I think it's like a great conversation to have during an interview, and some of them might like be impressed by our extracurriculars and see, okay, not only are they good in school, but they also take time to be involved in the community. So I think it's only a good thing to have extracurriculars, unless if it's going to affect a lot of your time.
Yeah. This one's very interesting. What's the point of pursuing a SE or CS degree to work software jobs when you can do the same with online certificate courses and boot camps? Very interesting question.
Great point. The main reason being that you don't get to do co-op while you do those online courses. And I guess a university degree goes a little bit more in depth because I've taken like online courses, because to actually land a co-op, not only do you need like to do the university degree, you also need to do those online certificates and courses. So I don't know if I speak for everyone here, but I'm pretty sure all of us have done some form of online like boot camp for some programming language or framework, right? Because they don't teach that in school. You learn C, C++, like memory management, assembly. And then later on, more advanced courses like networking, compilers, databases. But you don't actually have a course that's like building websites in React, right? That's something you completely learn on your own time. And that, that helps you find a job. But it's, I don't think you get the same, you can clearly do the other path, but I just feel like it'll take longer. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I also wanted to add, I feel like the point of university about, like learning this is this framework, this is this language. I feel like it's also what you're showcasing to HR is also that you're able to commit to something, right? And then actually do it. It also shows that, you have the time management skills, the different skills that comes with a university degree that you might not be able to showcase if you were doing like an online certificate otherwise.
Yeah. I would say like you don't need a degree. Like there's people who work at Google, they didn't finish university. But what percentage of the people are that? Like it's much harder, I would say, to go that path. It's not impossible. As Cindy pointed out, like university is more than just you learn this. Like it's the environment. There's the social aspect of it. There's, if you're in engineering, like you have this great cohort, you have the support from professors directly. You get to go on campus. You get to do extracurriculars there's all these amazing aspects that goes more than like staring at a computer screen doing this online course in boot camp. For sure, like you could do that, but I think it sucks. And like I've self-learned some courses, and I could probably do, like all of us could probably do it, but it's easy to give up, I think, because you don't have the support to keep pushing through that. But if you have the determination, like it's much cheaper to do online courses and boot camps, and for some people that's the reason. Like university is not cheap, let's be honest here. So that's one of the reasons you might want to do online certificates. But I think for most people, just go to university, I think will be easier. Is ECE bad, since everyone mentions the crazy workload and impossibility of passing? And why isn't EE and CE different? So maybe Aung can take on that question.
Yeah, so CE is big and EE have the exact same courses in the first 2 years, and then we kind of diverge. I've also heard about ECE being bad in terms of like course load. I would say that usually people in CE tend to be people who just want to do software, right? And CE has a lower admission average and a lower admission score. So like some people don't get into CS or SE, so they go into CE, but then they get hit by these courses that they don't really like. So they start complaining about that. And I think it does have some truth in that some of the electrical courses that CE kids take can be pretty challenging, especially if you're not interested in like that side of ECE. But I think if you are really interested in it, you will find a way to get through it. I'm only in first year, so like I think SE actually has a more challenging first year than a more challenging 1A than ECE or CCEE, same thing. But I can't really speak to the upper years. We'll say that ECE starts to get really tough by around like 1B/2A. So yeah, I can't really speak too much to the course load in the upper years. You have to ask some of the upper years for that. But I would say that if you like it, I don't think you'll figure out a way to get through it.
Yeah. Okay, there's this question asking about me, what's my coding experience and overall ECs for software engineering. For the sake of time, I think there's a better question that appears to be above it. So if you want to know about me, I think you can shoot me a message on Discord. And actually, because we're nearing the end of the panel, there's a lot of questions. So I think for anyone watching, or if you have still questions for us, like, you know, we're all available. Like, you can shoot us up on LinkedIn or even our Discord. You can send us a message, and we'll be happy to, at least for myself, I'm speaking, I'd be happy to help out, but I'm sure everyone here can take a few minutes to answer your question. So if you are curious about my coding experience and overall ECs for software engineering, like, just shoot me a message. I'll talk to you about it. There's a question about mechatronics and side not being a well sought out after major. Is it easier to get in, and do trons get to work hardware jobs, or are they forced to do software jobs as well? Ali, you seem like you want to answer this.
So as someone that had a Tron roommate and a side, like I think two side like best friends, there's, again, I really like to separate the people in the engineerings into two types of people, like Aung did, where, you know, there's some people that, you know, like for CE, for example, it was their first choice. And then for others, they go into CE as sort of an alternative, and then, you know, get hit with the courses they don't like and whatnot, and opportunities they don't like. So there are definitely some people in mechatronics that want to do only software positions, but mechatronics and side, I think, are still very sought after majors. Like people are still going, especially in the recent years, people are going pretty hard at them. So some like mechatronics students that stand out to me was, you know, someone that got in and he did a mechanical design like internship at Uber, I think. yeah, so that's like, it mixes the hardware side with the, Uber's autonomous driving cars. And now he's at Google X, so Moonshot Factory, which is, again, he's there as a mechanical intern, but he's not a mechanical engineering student, because when you have a software company doing mechanics, they're probably looking for mechatronics students. So I'd say there are a handful of jobs that really, really apply to the mechatronics student skill set that, a CE or SE and a mechanical engineering student alone usually doesn't have both of those qualifications combined. So mechatronics is still pretty sought after. And I see a lot of side people in more PM positions, but a lot of them do go into software. But it sort of leans more towards like, system design. So some of them really like PM roles for some reason. Maybe that was just my sample size, but I think they're both still really sought after.
Yeah, totally agree. So yeah, I think because we're 1:33, I think we can wrap it up. So maybe if, I don't know, each of us could give some pieces of advice, whether that's about the admission process or like just in general navigating university. I think all of us have, because we've been through this process and now we're in university, whether that's only a few months or a year, what advice would you give to your younger self, say back in high school when you were first applying? What would that be? I don't know if you guys need, I'll give you guys like 10 seconds, think about it. So think about it, and then we'll get started with Cindy. Let's do Cindy first.
Right. I guess two pieces of advice. The first one, for those who are in high school right now, grades are important, extracurriculars are important, uni is important, but your mental health is more important. So I know that sounds kind of cliche, but what I'm trying to say is this is just like a phase in your life. Even if it doesn't turn out as you expected, you're still gonna do well in the future. So just kind of don't stress, take care of yourself and take it easy. And then second piece of advice, when you're looking for like a university program, really try to figure out what you like, because uni is like 4 or 5 years, 5 years at Waterloo. So it's not a short period of time, and you really don't want to be struggling every second or like hating every second of it. So really figure out like where your interest lies.
Awesome. Maryam?
I completely agree with Sydney. Mental health always comes first. Grade 12 is very stressful, and I feel you, but it will be all right at the end of the day. And also keep in mind, meeting new people and making friends is also a huge, valuable part of your life. So please don't put like school first priority. Also take time and meet new people and make new friends, because that's how you'll get through at the end of the day.
Yeah. Ali, I saw you type up some text in the chat.
I'm typing up some answers to some of the questions that we're not going to get to, just in case, the people can look at them in the chat. But I hear a lot of advice being given to high school students. That's great. But a really big, important piece of advice that I would have told my younger self is what happens after you get it. Because you get so fixated on getting in that once you get in, it's like now now you're like midair. You're like, okay, now what? What's the next phase?
Yeah.
Right. So a big piece of advice I'd give is, when you get admitted into what seems like, an impossible, like you achieve what you deemed as impossible before, really, really try hard not to get imposter syndrome, and don't think that it was luck, because that is literally the beginning of the end. As soon as you think you got lucky from getting in, you start to, chuck up your failures as to not being good enough. And that's like a spiral downwards. So if you do manage to get in, the next step would be to be comfortable mentally with the fact that you got in because of yourself and you deserve to be here. They say that a lot, like the professors and directors, but you have to actually internalize it if you want to continue into a next phase of your life where you're not chasing after getting into uni anymore, you're chasing after other types of success.
Yeah, all of these are great advice, tips of advice. So I think mine would just be, I think when I was in grade 12, or like when I was applying to university, I'd say my relationships like with people I sacrificed my relationship with people, and I kind of regret that aspect, because I realized that that was a really important aspect of my life. and I was as Ali mentioned, like a lot of us when we apply to university, like kind of see it as an end goal, whether you want to do that consciously or not. And it's important to realize that there's things that are happening after university, and just to realize that. And I think I learned that learning to reflect is really important, for me at least. Like what goals you want to set in life and why is that important to you, and writing down your values. So I spent some time reading different books, and just reflecting on that. And I think that's something I would recommend anyone start trying, like doing meditation and start thinking, and even writing is a good exercise, because you have the AIFs that you need to write up, but that one is it's not really relevant, but I got into a bunch of things actually when I was applying to university, like storytelling and writing. But another advice I would give, is to not be afraid to try new things out. Like for university, I think like you gotta I felt like I had to really be good at something, and showcase that. But once now I'm in university, I'm not afraid to try different things. I'm the founder of Curious, so I was interested in the entrepreneurship aspect of it. But as I've said, like I'm still super interested in engineering, so that's why I'm exploring mechanical design, like mechanical engineering and electrical engineering stuff. So don't limit yourself to a certain path just because you set that like a few years ago. Like people change, like you change, your interest might be widely different. Maybe like Maryam or Cindy are going to end up in a completely different industry, or Ali or myself. Maybe I'm going to be actually an aerospace engineer. Who knows? But just be open to that, and having a growth mindset is something we learn actually in first year. I don't know about CS, but first year software engineering, we learn about that. So having a growth mindset is really important. So thank you all for coming today. Thank you, Maryam, Cindy, Ali, and I know Aung had to leave a bit early, but it was great talking with you all today, and I certainly learned a lot from you guys, and I hope this was a valuable panel for those of you watching. So thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for having us.
I guess you were a great host.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, I just want to say something before we
Go
leave.
ahead.
I want to give a shout out to Maryam. I know you have a YouTube channel, right? I've been watching your videos.
Yes,
What?
Maryam's a YouTuber. Yeah.
What?
No, I was trying to see if no one would know or hear that, but if you guys want to know more of like my experience, feel free to watch my videos. I'm actually filming a video about getting your first internship today, so
Nice. Nice.
keep that. Yeah, so I'll also leave my LinkedIn if anyone wants to like chat more. It was really nice speaking, and hopefully we gave valuable advice.
Yeah.